MCOMnet, second Monday at 7 p.m., W5FC. W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. My name is Brenda, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Okay, and I don't see anybody over there that we haven't acknowledged yet. So we'll take some more check-ins in a bit. So let's go ahead and get started. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please, please come now if you have announcements.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Okay, Tony, go ahead.
Good evening, Brenda. I have a very few items tonight. First, please join us for a rarely viewed and rarely talked about, and with good reason, movie Monster A Go-Go from 1966, Monster A Go-Go. It's available for free on YouTube, but personally at this point I think you should pay attention to this net. People work very hard to produce Skynet, and if they worked hard to produce Monster A Go-Go, we can't tell. That's tonight again. Monster Go-Go will be discussed tonight at about 10:30, 10:35. The time's a little flexible because we don't know when Skynet will end. But tonight, if like me you haven't been willing to watch it, you could at least listen to everybody else trash it. That's what I'm going to do. Now, after you enjoy the wonders of Skynet and the miseries of the Afterglow movie discussion, you might wonder what else is left in ham radio. Well, that's easy. We have two great nets tomorrow. We have the meeting on the air tomorrow on this repeater at 7 p.m. The meeting on the air is open to any ham who can hear the repeater or reach us by Echolink who'd like to share what's been going on in their ham world. That's the key fun part. We all talk about what we've been doing lately. At 8 p.m., we have a more serious net, 8 p.m. tomorrow. That's the RACES training net. Everyone is allowed to listen to the training, but only RACES appointees can check in. So, tomorrow at 7, tomorrow at 8, great nets. Tomorrow at 10:30, a great net about, not tomorrow, tonight at 10:30, a great net about a less than great movie. So, lots of fun stuff. NT 5TM, back to net.
Thank you, Tony. Yes, if you want to talk about the movie or watch the movie, there may or may not be a monster wearing go-go boots. We'll just let you find out for yourself. Okay, other announcements. The AMSET Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 3 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central, you can check the National AMSET net. Learn all about amateur satellites and how you can use them in amateur radio. The National AMSAT net will bring the most up-to-date information on amateur satellites currently in use or new ones coming online. You will need Echolink installed and be registered. You can find the net under Groups in AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website, www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. 2 local nets are available in Dallas. Both these nets encourage active check-ins. You can ask questions of the net control as well as others checked in. AMSAT East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Thursday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.88 megahertz, PL 110.9 on Tuesdays. Tom, N5HYP, is the net control. All are welcome to check in. First Tuesday of the month is DARC Club Night, so no AMSAT night East night that night. Texas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.14 megahertz, PL 110.9 megahertz, positive offset. So the DARC hosts a number of nets on Monday evenings at 7. Check the W5FC.org website. This coming Monday will be the first week of the Ham Fixins Net. This is a cooking net. The second week is MCOM 101, Emergency Communications. Third week, another Ham Fixins Net, a second helping in case you didn't have enough the first time. Then this Monday is the second helping of Ham Fixins Net. Bring your favorite new recipes, cooking tips, or techniques. We wouldn't even mind a good restaurant review or two. Just make sure you eat something before the net because you'll get hungry. Brenda W5FC is net control. Well, I usually am, but this time we have a guest net control. That would be Randy, KE5JIT. He and I used to split it, and he's going to be running the net from his new home in Corpus Christi now. So if you're missing Randy, as I am, check into the net on Monday night. Fourth week, GeekNet, Geek Beyond Ham Radio. Fifth week, Surprise Net. Saturdays are the net of nets, where we keep the airwaves buzzing until midnight. Here's the lineup. TechNet, 7 to 8 p.m. Q&A on all things ham radio related. There's also a swap meet, Rookies Corner, news and information, and ham radio events. And contest, alternating net control each week. Let me reset. Skynet from 9 to 10:30 p.m. Astronomy, space, and space exploration are the topics. Also, news and information, satellite passes, and the constellation of the week. Join this popular net about ham's second most favorite hobby, astronomy, alternating net controls. Afterglow Movie net from 10:30 to midnight. Will it be a hit or the dreaded miss? Thumbs up or thumbs down? You make the call. More in a moment. Yeah, if we get one that's thumbs up, I'm waiting to see that. I don't think we have yet. Well, okay, a couple. First and third Sundays, Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air, MODA. What's going on in your ham world? Tell us. Also learn about the club that maintains this popular repeater, the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. Club news and information, events, activities, including club meetings, lecture and lab, public service events, contests, and just general discussion. Everyone can check into this net. And every day, the ARRL net, National Traffic System Training net, every night at 6:30 p.m. Learn how message traffic is handled on this formal training net. Newbies are welcome to check in as this is a training net. The NTS also conducts an evening net on the Irving WA5CKF repeater 146.72 megahertz at 9:30 p.m. All are welcome to check in on all or any of these nets. Now, we're going to talk about tonight's movie, Monster A Go-Go. This is a highly accurate synopsis, and since he wrote, I'm going to ask Tom, KE5ICX, if he would please read it.
Thank you, Brenda, and this is KE5ICX. This may be more coherent than you might imagine. After seeing the movie, I'm not so sure I know what I saw. Here it is. Frank Douglas was an American astronaut, and he wasn't having a very good day. His spacecraft had parachuted home, and our man from space was also going through a transformation from American hero into a large radioactive humanoid monster. It was the type of thing you would expect to happen to a Soviet cosmonaut. They were constantly turning into radioactive monsters, and Pravda was busy covering up these weird transformations with a stylish hat and floor-shine shoes. Douglas was on the run. He could hear the bloodhounds barking in the background, but he quickly broke into a local shoe store to don a disguise. Join us for the rarely viewed and with good reason movie Monster A Go-Go, which was mentioned earlier, from 1965, tonight at 10:30 p.m., or 1961, if you want to count the first time it went bankrupt. Back to you, Brenda, KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Let's go see if we have any additional check-ins. And we do. We have added NV5F, Virginia, at Fort Worth, and N5OF, Clay, and Mesquite. Do we have anybody else that wants to check in here on the air? Please come now. Okay, next, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, when and where you can look through a telescope. I call on Chaz, KF5JAJ, to provide this information. Go ahead, Chaz.
I've got to see if I can get Bob the cat to check in. Oh, well. He just isn't talking right now. He's close by. On May the 23rd is the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting. The meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. at the University of Texas at Dallas. That's on Campbell Road. There's also a Zoom component. The featured speaker is Jerry Gardner. His topic is about the former 3RF observing site near Crowell, Texas, which is now named Three Rivers Ranch. This will be very interesting. It's run by, I believe, Texas A&M, if I remember. No, Texas Tech, excuse me. That's what it's being run by now. Now, Saturday night public observing sessions continue. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. On the third Saturday of the month, that would be tonight, the stargazing is usually held at Cedar Hill, but because of the clouds out there, I'm sure it did not happen. Now, check the TASS website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. You can even find out how to buy a pair of binoculars or a telescope or all sorts of information on the website. This is KF5JJ, back to Brenda. Hey, you know what? I'm signed in twice over in Echolink. I think you are too.
Thank you, Chaz. Next, Bill, N5BB, would you please tell us about the National Space Society events and activities?
Yes, Brenda. This is N5BB. And hold on as I pull my script back up. Okay. I am the Vice President and the Membership Director for the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. The big event each year for the National Space Society is the International Space Development Conference, abbreviated ISDC. The next ISDC will be held in Orlando, Florida, June 19th to 22nd, in about a month. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society meets at 3:30 p.m. on the second Sunday afternoon of each month. The meeting location is Spring Creek Barbecue on the southwest corner of Highway 183 and Beltline Road in Irving. The next chapter meeting will be held on Sunday afternoon, June the 8th. Our presentation topic for this meeting is Space Welding by University of Texas at Dallas professor Dr. Wei Li. Our meetings are also available virtually using WebEx. Contact Bill, N5BB, if you would like to attend. Earlier today, 3 National Space Society North Texas chapter members participated with a space information table at the Haltom City Library Flea for All outdoor event. On the last Friday evening of each month at 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous. The location is Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. Anyone is welcome to attend and discuss human activities in space with us. No membership in any group is required. 7 people attended the April Space Rendezvous event. The next Space Rendezvous will be held on Friday, May the 30th. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ndx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box. If you have any questions about the National Space Society, please contact Bill, November 5 Bravo Bravo, at his QRZ listed email address or at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE at BYROM.net. That's all I've got. This is N5BB, back to net.
Thank you, Bill. Our next segment is Recent Astronomical Discoveries, presented by me. It's an article from Science Daily entitled Astrophysicists Explore a Galaxy's Magnetic Turbulence in Unprecedented Detail Using a New Computer Model. Astronomers have developed a groundbreaking computer simulation to explore in unprecedented detail magnetism and turbulence in the interstellar medium, ISM, the vast ocean of gas and charged particles that lies between the stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Described in a new study published today in Nature Astronomy, the model is the most powerful to date, requiring the computing capability of the Super MUCNG supercomputer at the Leibniz Supercomputing Center in Germany. It directly challenges our understanding of how magnetized turbulence operates in astrophysical environments. James Beattie, the paper's lead author and a postdoctoral researcher at the Canadian Institute for Theoretical Physics, CITA, at the University of Toronto, is hopeful the model will provide new insights into the ISM, the magnetism of the Milky Way galaxy as a whole, and astrophysical phenomenon such as star formation and the propagation of cosmic rays. This is the first time we can study these phenomena at this level of precision and at those different scales, he says. The paper was co-authored with researchers from Princeton University, Australian National University, Australian Research Council Center of Excellence in All Sky Astrophysics, Universitat Heidelberg, the Center for Astrophysics, Harvard and Smithsonian, Harvard University, the Bavarian Academy of Sciences and Humanities. Turbulence remains one of the greatest unsolved problems in classical mechanics, says B., who also holds a joint appointment at Princeton University. This despite the fact that turbulence is ubiquitous, from swirling milk in our coffee to chaotic flows in the oceans, solar wind, interstellar medium, and even the plasma between galaxies. The key distinction in astrophysical environments is the presence of magnetic fields, which fundamentally alter the nature of turbulent flows. While there are far, far fewer particles in interstellar space than in ultra-high vacuum experiments on Earth, their motions are enough to generate a magnetic field, not unlike how the motion of our planet's molten core generates the Earth's magnetic field. And while the galactic magnetic field is a few million times so sorry, I must have timed out. Not unlike how the motion of our planet's molten core generates the Earth's magnetic field. And while the galactic magnetic field is a few million times weaker than a fridge magnet, it is nonetheless one of the forces that shapes the cosmos. The largest version of Beatty's model is a cube 10,000 units per dimension that provides much greater detail than previous models. In addition to its high resolution, the model is scalable and you can simulate it at its largest, a volume of space some 30 light years on its side, and its smallest, it can be scaled down by a factor of some 5,000. At its largest, the model can improve our understanding of the Milky Way galaxy's overall magnetic field. When scaled down, it will help astronomers better understand more complex processes like the solar wind that streams outward from the sun and greatly affects the Earth. Because of its higher resolution, the model also has the potential to provide a deeper understanding of star formation. We know that magnetic pressure opposes star formation by pushing outward against gravity as it tries to collapse the star-forming nebulous speedy. Now we can qualify in detail what to expect from magnetic turbulence on all those kinds of scales. In addition to its higher resolution and scalability, the model also marks a significant advance by simulating the dynamic changes in the density of the ISN, from an incredibly tenuous near vacuum to the higher densities found in star-forming nebulas. This article goes on quite a while, so I'm going to quit there. It's in ScienceDaily.com, or you can look online on our website and see the whole text of it. At this point, do we have any more check-ins? Please come now. Okay, we have an additional check-in, Catherine, KB8DAA, and Addison. Welcome to the net, Catherine. Let's run over here to the, I don't have any more new ones over there on the club check-in. All right, moving on. I have many little tabs open here. And that's okay. So, our main feature tonight, presented by me, is entitled Dramatic Artist's Concept of the End of the Universe. How will the universe end? The question just got an unexpected twist. If you had asked me a year... Okay, this is in the words of the author, which unfortunately I forgot to list it here. I am so sorry. So if you had asked me a year ago about the most ultimate fate of the universe, I would have been able to answer immediately. As a cosmologist, I spent a lot of time thinking about the end of the universe. I even wrote a book on the topic. We know the universe is expanding and that expansion is speeding up. In the far distant future, this accelerating expansion will empty out the cosmos until there's essentially nothing left. Stars burn out, matter decays, black holes evaporate, and eventually nothing is left but a few stray particles of light diffusing away the waste heat of all creation. This scenario is sometimes called the heat death or the big freeze, and it's a straightforward consequence of our best working theory for how the universe behaves. But if you ask me today, I would hesitate. The results announced in late March by the Dark Energy Spectroscopic Instrument, DESI, building on a previous data release last year, paint a very different picture of our universe by challenging our best guess let's see, of its most important and most mysterious compact component, dark energy. When dark energy was first discovered, so it was, to put it mildly, a surprise. In the late 1990s, astronomers discovered that the expansion of the universe, initially set off by the Big Bang, has been subtly speeding up over the last few billion years. The acceleration was clear in the data and confirmed by multiple groups, but it didn't seem to make any sense. Researchers expected expansion to decelerate, not accelerate. Everything in the cosmos, galaxies, stars, gas, dust, even pure energy, has a gravitational effect on everything else. And gravity pulls objects together, never pushes them apart. So while astronomers have known for more than 100 years distant galaxies are moving away from each other and moving away from us, with the expansion of the cosmos, the only sensible explanation was that the gravity of all the stuff should resist the expansion, and gradually to slow it down. Let me reset. If the expansion of the universe was accelerating, though, it was as though something was actively stretching space out from within, over and above the residual expansion from the Big Bang. Nothing known to exist in the universe should be able to do that. Fortunately for astronomers, Albert Einstein's theory of gravity, general relativity, offered a potential loophole. While it was still true that no known substance could make the universe accelerate in its expansion, Einstein did leave open the possibility that space itself could do the job. In his equations for the evolution of the cosmos, he added a term called cosmological constant, depicted as the Greek letter lambda, that essentially gave space itself the ability to swell from within and push back against gravitational collapse. When Einstein first proposed it, astronomers didn't know the universe was expanding. Once observations pointed to an expanding universe, he took the term out of his equations and wrote it off as a mistake and moved on to more sensible things. When faced with their unexpected observations of acceleration, modern astronomers thought that perhaps the cosmological constant could explain the unexpected stretching of space. Bizarre as it was, it did. Gonna reset. The cosmological constant also presented a compelling timeline. Back when the universe was smaller and denser, gravity was gradually slowing the expansion, and the cosmological constant didn't have much effect. But as soon as the universe became big and diffuse enough, about 6 billion years ago, all that empty space meant that the tiny bit of stretching tendency could take over, causing expansion to speed back up. For the past few decades, every observation seemed to be in reasonable agreement with this narrative, so physicists integrated a cosmological constant into their model of how the universe works. The cosmological constant falls into the umbrella of the more generic term dark energy, which refers to anything that causes cosmic acceleration and encompasses the possibility of a cosmological constant or something even weirder. By keeping the definition of dark energy broad, we've also kept an open mind for other explanations. Maybe dark energy isn't an inherent property of space, but actually some kind of as yet unknown energy field, sometimes called quintessence or dynamical dark energy. This field could be acting like a cosmological constant now, stretching space in just the same way, but instead of being a constant property of space, it might be something that changes with time, either growing weaker or stronger as the universe evolves. Figuring out what exactly is happening with dark energy, let me reset. And whether it really is a cosmological constant has been the driving motivation for several major observational projects in recent years, including DESI. Whatever dark energy is, by our best astrophysical accounting, It makes up something like 70% of the energy density of the universe. It's the most important thing in the cosmos, both in terms of its amount and in terms of its influence on cosmic evolution. If dark energy is a cosmological constant, the heat-death scenario where the universe ends dark and cold and empty is virtually assured. We can calculate how long it will be before distant galaxies are pulled away from us so fast that we can no longer see them, about 100 billion years. And we can determine how long it will be before the cosmos fully succumbs to its own inevitable decay. The number is too big to easily express in words. Since DESI's results have come out, though, people have been asking how that picture might change. The DESI results appear to agree better with a kind of dark energy that gets weaker over time than with a cosmological constant. The results are pretty compelling, but not yet what we in physics would call a discovery. If the finding is correct, the expansion is still accelerating, but not as much as it was when dark energy first began to dominate. That's definitely not how the cosmological constant works. Some news stories about the results have suggested that this is the reason for a certain kind of optimism. Maybe the heat death isn't our fate after all. Perhaps the weakening of dark energy means the expansion will enter a coasting phase or eventually stop altogether. Some have even floated the idea this evolving dark energy could weaken so much that it becomes an attractive force, reversing expansion completely and leading to a, quote, big crunch. Going to reset. Personally, I would advocate quite a bit more caution in these interpretations, even if DESI's results completely hold up to scrutiny or are confined by other surveys to give us essentially no information about the future. The only reason we can make inferences about our fate with a cosmological constant is that we know exactly how it behaves. It's a constant. With dynamical dark energy, though, until we know what drives this evolution, we have no handle on what will happen next. Maybe we'll get something else entirely. Taken at face value, the DESI results suggest that in an earlier epoch, dark energy was in what physics call the phantom regime. Phantom dark energy is dark energy that gets more powerful over time in a way that can literally rip the universe apart. If it really was phantom in the past, there's nothing to say it can't shift that direction again, potentially leading to a rather ghastly fate called the Big Rip. On the theory side, there are reasons to doubt that phantom energy, dark energy can happen at all, but if it can, it doesn't exactly inspire optimism. What happens if dark energy disappears? I should say that even if dark energy weakens so much it disappears entirely, even if expansion completely stops, it's not necessarily a reprieve. Stars will still explode or fade away as the hydrogen they contain is converted into helium in their cores. Black holes will grow and eventually evaporate, and one way or another the cosmos will tend toward disorder and decay as some of our most reliable physical laws require. It's also possible that an entirely different fate could befall us, driven by a quantum shift in the laws of physics, a weird and decidedly unsurvivable phenomenon known as vacuum decay. If dark energy really does go away, and if vacuum decay doesn't happen, some slim prospects for keeping anything like life going on in an expanding universe might theoretically exist, but I'd say they're more technical than practical. There just isn't a lot of room in our current understanding of cosmology for a happily ever after. Personally, I'm excited to see how this debate develops. Despite the bleak prognosis, DESI's results could lead to the first major cosmological paradigm shift since dark energy was discovered. and a complete rewriting of our model of the universe. Dark energy will probably destroy everything eventually, but in the meantime, the quest to understand it has driven some incredible discoveries, and there's no telling what the universe has in store for us next. All right, do we have any more check-ins? Okay, next up, Waz Up from Chaz. So, KF5JHA, go ahead, please.
You know, the Hubble constant might not be constant. That's been the talk the last couple of weeks at Brookhaven campus between some astronomers, so that's kind of interesting. Okay. And is it changing constantly? Linear fashion, or, well, this is new stuff, so who knows. Slide Masters, that would be Tom. He's our slide master for our video version of Skynet. If you want to see that, go to w5fc.org and click on the link for YouTube, and you can see the video version as well. So this is Chaz, KF5JHA. We call this segment of Skynet Waz Up, because it's all about what's going on astronomically over the last couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. Slide Master, slide number 3. We've talked about the predicted nova of the star T Corona Borealis, which may erupt at any time. It's really way past due by several months, if not more than a year. It's currently at a brightness of around 10th magnitude, which is much too faint to be seen with just your two eyes. But when it goes nova, T Corona Borealis could become as bright as the North Star, which is 2nd magnitude. Now, I can see the North Star with just my two eyes from my very light-polluted location here in Mesquite. Wow. Okay. Oh, Brenda, I forgot. You've got to check me in 4 times tonight. I'm logged in 3 different ways on Echolink, plus I'm transmitting on radio, so that should count as 4, shouldn't it? We're eventually going to get to the number of 42 check-ins. I know we will. Slide Master, slide number 4. Now, this image is from Tuesday, May the 15th, from spaceweather.com of the sun. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that you could use the solar eclipse glasses just to see them. That's all you need. In fact, about 10 days ago, for several days, we had a sunspot that was big enough you could see with just your solar eclipse glasses. If it's still in existence when it rotates back around, we might be able to see it starting the end of this coming week. The sun is near its 11-year solar maximum. Now, we're not quite sure when the solar maximum will occur until after it happens. Now, I talked about the solar eclipse cycle about 4 months ago on Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 5. On May the 12th, the moon was full. So the current phase of the moon is a waning gibbous. On May the 20th, the moon is at 3rd quarter phase. On May the 25th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 359,022 kilometers. On May the 26th, the moon is new. The moon is at 1st quarter phase on June the 2nd. On June the 7th, the moon will be at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 405,554 kilometers. Slide Master, slide number 6, please. Now, on May the 22nd, that's in a few days from now, the moon and Saturn and Neptune are all in conjunction in the early morning east-southeastern sky. You'll need a telescope to observe the planet Neptune, because it's too faint to be seen. Even with binoculars, you can't see it. Slide Master, slide number 7. On May the 23rd, the moon and Venus are in conjunction in the eastern morning sky. Venus is that really bright thing, not the moon, but the really bright thing over there in the morning sky right now. It was in the evening sky, it switched over to the morning sky. It's usually in the evening sky for about 9 months, and then in the morning sky for about 9 months. Slide Master, slide number 8. On May the 25th, the planets Mercury and Uranus are in conjunction in the early morning east-northeastern morning sky. The Pleiades star cluster is close by. You'll need a pair of binoculars or a telescope in order to see the planet Uranus. Might need a pair of binoculars to see the Pleiades since it's going to be in twilight. Slide master, slide number 9. On May the 26th, there's a daytime occultation of the Pleiades star cluster by the moon. An occultation is when the moon blocks or occults an object. Now, you'll need a moderate-sized telescope in order to observe this event, but something you need to be very careful about is not to point the telescope towards the sun, because you can permanently damage your eyes and the telescope. Slide master, slide number 10. On the evening twilight of May the 27th in the western sky, you can see the conjunction of the moon and the planet Jupiter. Jupiter's the bright thing over there low in the west right now. Slide master, slide number 11. On the evening of May the 29th, in the western evening sky, you can observe the conjunction of the moon and the bright star Pollux. That's in the constellation of Gemini, the twins. Slide master, slide number 12. The moon and the planet Mars will be in conjunction in the evening sky on May the 31st. And this is KF5, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 13. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have a question, or maybe you need a fill on any of the information, or maybe you just have a general astronomy question? Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. I've been so lucky tonight. Bob the Cat has not tried to walk on the computer keyboard, nor the tablet, nor the cell phone. And I'm signed in on Echolink and all of them. He could be walking all over them. Oh, well. This is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet, transmitting on the W5FC repeater on 146.88 megahertz. Now, back to our net control because, well, as the moon wanes, in the next couple of weeks, so are these words for Skynet. Well, this segment of Skynet. I'll probably be doing another segment in a few minutes.
Thank you, Chaz. Next up. Lost my connection somehow. Next, space exploration and space history. Tonight is going to be read by Gus, W5GUS. Please go ahead, Gus.
Okay, thank you very much. W5GUS here with space exploration and space history. Let's see, starting March 18th, NASA's Perseverance rover captured an unprecedented image, the first ever visible aurora on Mars, seen directly from the planet's surface. The finding marks a major milestone in planetary science. It's the first confirmed sighting of an aurora visible to the human eye from a planet other than Earth. Auroras are those shimmering curtains of light near Earth's poles. They occur when charged solar particles interact with a planet's magnetic field and atmosphere. On Earth, the result is often a brilliant green or red glow concentrated around the polar regions. But on Mars, the mechanism is similar, but the result is very different. Mars lacks a global magnetic field, meaning auroras aren't confined to polar regions, but instead they appear across the entire planet. These events tend to be fainter and more diffuse than Earth's, and until now had only been detected through invisible ultraviolet wavelengths.
Okay, we'll move on to the universe here. The universe is decaying much faster than thought. This is shown by calculations of 3 Dutch scientists on the so-called Hawking radiation. They calculated that the last stellar remnants take about 1,078 years to perish. That is much shorter than the previously postulated about 101,000 years. The research by black hole experts, a quantum physicist, and a mathematician from a university in Netherlands is a follow-up to a 2023 paper by the same trio. Okay, in that first paper, they showed that they thought that only black holes, that not only black holes, but also other objects such as neutron stars can, quote, evaporate via a process akin to Hawking radiation. After that publication, the researchers received many questions from inside and outside the scientific community about how long that process would take. They now have answered the question in a new article. The researchers calculated that the end of the universe is about 1,078 years away, if only Hawking-like radiation is taken into account. This is the time it takes for a white dwarf star, which is the most persistent celestial body, to decay via the Hawking-like radiation. Previous studies, I guess their previous study, which did not take this into effect, into account, put the lifetime of white dwarfs at about 100,000 years. The lead author said, so the ultimate end of the universe comes much sooner than expected, but fortunately it still takes a very long time. Well, that was certainly an interesting conclusion. All right, let's move along now to space-related birthdays. This for this past week, May 11th through the 17th. Okay, May 12th, 1962 was Greg Johnson. He was in STS-123, STS-134 also. Okay, it seems like middle of May has been pretty popular for birthdays for astronauts. May 14th, 1952, Donald McMongle, STS-39, STS-54, STS-66. Also May 14th, but 5 years later, William Gregory, STS-67. May 14th, again, 1964, James Kelly, STS-102, STS-114. All right, May 14 again, Jessica Watkins. She was a SpaceX she was on SpaceX Crew 4, Expedition 67 and 68. Okay, going to May 15th, 1942. Tony England, STS-51F, like Frank. All right, again on May 15th, 1949, Frank Culberson, Jr., STS-38, STS-51, STS-105, Expedition 3. Okay, now on May 16th, 1945, Brewster H. Shaw, STS-9, STS-61, STS-28. May 17th, 1967, Joseph M. Acaba, STS-119, Expedition 31-32, and Expedition 53-54. Okay, that was it for the birthdays, so let's move on to space history for the same week. The first was pretty interesting here. It was the uncrewed Skylab 1 space station. It launched aboard a huge Saturn V rocket, which was the last Saturn V ever launched. And in 63 seconds after liftoff, and 63 seconds into the mission, a meteor shield tore loose and caused a cascade of damage to the thermal protection layers and the solar panels that were supposed to provide electrical power. And so when Skylab reached orbit, it started to overheat and couldn't generate the power needed for the mission. So in the next 10 days, NASA personnel worked very hard to keep the station alive while a rescue plan was put together and equipped. And it was carried out by the first Skylab crew about 11 days later, one day after they came up with the plan. Crew was Pete Conrad, Paul Witz, and Joe Kerwin. And they had to do things that no one had ever planned, including adding a sun shield to the space station and opening a jammed solar panel. Their mission saved the whole Skylab program. Okay, next is the May 15th, 1963. There was a Mercury Atlas 9 named Faith 7 launched. Mercury was a single occupant program. The flight crew was this flight by Leroy Gordon, or Gordo Cooper, was the first U.S. space flight that lasted longer than 24 hours. It was also the last flight of Project Mercury, and therefore the last time that a U.S. astronaut launched solo. Gordo's second and last space flight was commander of Gemini 5, which with Pete Conrad in 1965. There had been some discussion about flying another Mercury Atlas 10 mission. Alan Shepard personally lobbied President Kennedy for approval to fly that mission, but the president deferred to the judgment of NASA administrator Jim Webb and said that it was time to move ahead with Project Gemini. Shepard was grounded for a medical issue shortly afterward and would not fly in space again for a while until 1971, when he commanded Apollo 14, which was the third mission to land on the moon. So well worth the wait. Okay, May 16th, 2011, Space Shuttle Endeavour launched on her last space flight, STS-134. The 16-day mission delivered the Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer and other spare parts to the International Space Station. And coincidentally, 19 years earlier, Endeavour's first mission, STS-49, landed on the same day, May 16th. Now retired, the orbiter is on display at the California Science Center in Los Angeles. Okay, May 18th, Apollo 10 launched. The crew's mission was to fly the complete profile of a moon landing mission without actually touching down on the moon. That goal was, of course, achieved on the next Apollo mission, Apollo 11. Apollo 10 was only the second human spacecraft to orbit the moon and the first to travel to the moon with a lunar module. And while orbiting the moon on May 22nd, 69, astronauts Tom Stafford, Gene Cernan descended inside the lunar module, which they called, codenamed Snoopy, to within nearly 9 miles of the lunar surface. And meanwhile, astronaut John Young flew the command module, call sign or codenamed Charlie Brown, awaiting return of his crewmates. Having successfully tested the full lunar landing profile, the crew of Apollo 10 returned to Earth, splashing down on May 26, 69. John Young returned to the Moon as commander of Apollo 16, and Gene Cernan commanded Apollo 17. And unlike his crew, Tom Stafford never did get to walk on the Moon. Okay, and that takes care of the space history. And back to net control, W5GUS.
Thank you so much, Gus, for reading that. I do owe an apology. Sorry, the article on universe's decay, I just copied it, and now I realize some mathematical errors. Instead of, it says the end of the universe is in 1,078 years, it's meant to be 10 to the 78th power, which is a little different. And then it talks about the lifetime of white dwarfs. It looks like it's 101,100,000 years. That's really 10 to the 1100th power. So, so sorry about that. I guess I should have proofread it, but I just copied it over, and there it went. All right, do we have any more check-ins at this time? Okay, next is Chaz's other segment. This is called Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. KFI, JHA, Chaz, take it away.
Thank you again, Brenda. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. Slide Master, slide number 15. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 till May of 2019. Yep, we started Skynet in 2012. Wow. She told us about the detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Those are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in North Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations. So Ms. Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Ms. Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Libra the Scales. So Libra is a zodiacal constellation. It's the only member of the zodiac that depicts an inanimate object. The ancient Greeks did not recognize Libra, but instead had its stars represent the claws of the adjacent Scorpius. Other cultures, including the ancient Romans, Egyptians, Hebrews, Indians, recognize Libra as a balance, as a scale. Isn't it interesting that many different cultures recognize this as the same thing? The concept of a balanced scale in the sky originates from the equal lengths of day and night at the equinox. 2,000 years ago, the September equinox was what it is now, what we call Libra. So the stars in that part of the sky came to be associated with the distance of the balance of scales. Due to the precessional equinox, when the sun is in the September equinox today, it's in the constellation of Virgo. Slide Master, slide number 16, a very important part of Skynet, the jokes of the week. Okay, slide number 16, here we go. Now, if you're new to Skynet, you can boo or hiss. If you're over there on Echolink, you're welcome to make comments over there. I'll probably read those out loud on the air as long as I can. Yes, okay. Anyway, how does the psychic achieve a work-life balance? By finding a happy medium. So, you know, these jokes are associated with the constellation. Yeah, okay, here we go. So, our net control, that would be Brenda, WB5OZL, is trying to keep balance, trying to balance mints on her foot. It turns out that she was playing tic-tac-toe. Sorry, Brenda, I just had to do that one. Why does the tiger eat the tightrope marker? He wanted a well-balanced diet. What do teenagers call a well-balanced meal? A packet of ramen noodles in each hand. Now, I have 6 goldfish named Major, Minor, Flat 9, Bebop, Altered, and Blues. The only way I can tell them apart is by their scales. And the final one, here we go. You can boo or hiss. You can make, well, that's what they do at the Astronomy Club meeting. They boo and hiss. Yeah. Or actually, they applaud because it's the last one. A wife saw her husband sucking in his stomach while standing on the scales and said, "That won't help." But he said, "Yes, it does. I can read the numbers now." Oh, come on. That is the funniest one, isn't it? Slide master, slide number 17. I like this star, so I like to say it a few times. Zupanel Ganubi is also known as Alpha Libra. It's the brightest star in the Libra constellation at a magnitude of 2.00. It lies very close to the ecliptic. Zupanel Ganubi is an Arabic for Southern Claw. The name of the stars date back to the time when the stars were currently not in Libra, but they were part of Scorpius. Zupanel Ganubi is a double star and is very easy to split or separate. It can be easily split in a common 6x30 finder scope or a telescope. Despite the wide separation, the two stars share the same proper motion and are believed to be a true physical pair. Zupanel Shimali is also known as Beta Libra and shines at magnitude 2.59. The name means the northern claw. Isn't that interesting? Using an 8-inch telescope at low magnification, Zupanel Shimali is a nice framed by a triangle of fainter stars, all 3 of which are similar in brightness. The star itself looks white. Slide master, slide number 18. The object NGC, that stands for New General Catalog 5897, is a globular cluster, and it's also known as the ghost globular cluster because of how faint it is. In their book, The Night Sky Observer's Guide, George Keppel and Glenn Stanner also wrote that in an 8 to 10-inch telescope, the globular cluster is a diffuse, low-surface brightness halo with poorly concentrated center. A few dozen stars may be glimpsed with an averted vision. With a 16 to 18-inch telescope, they note that the cluster resolves well. This globular cluster is very faint. It needs more aperture than an 8-inch Cassegrain telescope, and an 8-inch telescope can barely start to observe some of the brighter star cluster members. Averted vision, that means where you look at the edge of the field of view and rather directly at the object. That can help. So otherwise, it's just a faint fuzzy glow. Slide master, slide number 19. The object PK342 plus 27.1 is a planetary nebula. It is a nebula itself. Initially at low power, it looks like a faint member of a double star. Increasing magnification shows it to be an extended object, albeit a small one. And at 126 power and an 8-inch telescope, the outer edges of the nebula appear to be somewhat fuzzy. There is evidently a bit more to see in larger instruments. Keppel and Sander write that in a 16 to 18-inch telescope at 300 power, a 7-arc-second diameter disk of the nebula is visible, surrounded by a star-like center. Slide master, slide number 20. NGC 5878 is a spiral galaxy at magnitude 12.5. That's kind of faint. In an 8-inch scope, this galaxy is right at the limit of visibility. Averted vision is a must. It appears as an elongated faint glow, just barely visible. The long axis is aligned with the north-south line. Slide master, slide number 21. An interesting name for an object, ARP, has to do with a catalog that was named after him. ARP 254, also known as NGC 5917, is a challenging object to see. According to the book, the ARP Atlas of the Peculiar Galaxies, NGC 5917, has a faint companion galaxy known as MCG-1-39-3 and has a tenuous bridge, presumably of stars, gas, and dust, connecting them. Close examination of photographs taken of large observatory telescopes show that the interiors of both galaxies appear to be affected by each other. Since the system is totally isolated in the intergalactic space, the bridge and the disturbance appearance of this suggests a galactic sideswipe. Wow, one interacted with the other. An 8-inch or even a 16-inch telescope cannot visually see the telescope. This is an object for astrophotographers to explore. And this is KF5, JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 22. Now, there are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Libra, the scales. I've given you just a sampling of a few of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 74 different observing programs, most of which have around 100 objects. So, if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen from the Astronomical League in about a year. Slide master, slide number 23, and that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Libra the Scales. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for their research and words on deep sky objects that I borrow, use, and steal for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now next week, we'll look at two different constellations, Boötes, the Shepherd, and Corona Borealis, the Northern Crown. And next week, I will not be in the Metroplex, but I plan to be on Skynet through Echolink. I'll be transmitting from the beautiful downtown Lockbourne, Ohio. That's my plan anyway. And this is KF5JHA saying good night, and 73 back to our net control.
Thank you, Chaz. Do we have any more check-ins at this time?
Kilo India 5, Juliet, Charlie, Mike, Thomas, and Euless, no traffic.
I'm sorry, I was slow with the pencil. Could you tell me your call again, please?
Sure, Kilo, India, 5, Juliet, Charlie, Mike, Thomas, and Euless, no traffic.
Thank you. We got Kilo India 5, Juliet, Charlie, Mike, Thomas. Welcome to the net. Okay, next we have Tom K5ICX is going to tell us about space launches for this week. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Brenda. This is KE5ICX, and here we go. Starlink galore this week, 12-15 to be exact. This one will launch on there's today. It was there. I saw it. There it is, May 19th, 20th overnight. This will be from SLC-40 and Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Falcon 9 rocket will launch another batch of Starlink V2 mini satellites, including 13 equipped for direct-to-cell phone service. A little more than 8 minutes after liftoff, the first stage booster will target a landing on a drone ship positioned in the Atlantic Ocean, east of the Bahamas. May 20th, there'll be a Falcon 9 launch, Starlink 11-16. This will be from SLC-4E at Vandenberg out in California. It'll launch another batch of D2 mini satellites in low Earth orbit. A little more than 8 minutes after liftoff, the first stage will target a landing on a drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You, positioned in the Pacific Ocean. Then we have Test Flight 1, Pad 1, Bowen Orbital Spaceport. This is in Australia at the Gilmore Space Center. It will launch the inaugural flight of its Ares Block 1 rocket. The three-stage rocket vehicle is 82 feet tall and is equipped with a 4.9 diameter payload fairing. The rocket is designed to send up to 305 kilograms into low Earth orbit. The first mission, called Test Flight 1, how imaginative, does not appear to have a payload on board. It's delayed from May 4th, 2024 to a lack of a launch permit. Next up is late May, we don't know exactly when, a Falcon 9 launch of GPS-3 SV-08. This is from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral. Falcon 9 rocket will launch the 8th Global Positioning System 3 satellite built by Lockheed Martin. GPS-3 is named in honor of mathematician Katherine Johnson, whose calculations contribute significantly to early human space flight. The Falcon 9 first stage booster will target a landing on a drone ship positioned in the Atlantic Ocean. In June, there'll be a Falcon 9 launch of the Axiom Mission 4, or AX-4. This will launch from Kennedy Space Center at Launch Complex 39A. This will launch the 4th private astronaut mission to the International Space Station. Former NASA astronaut and Axiom Space Director of Human Spaceflight will serve as commander of the mission. This will be her 5th trip to space and her 2nd time commanding a private astronaut mission. That would be Shubhanshu Shukla, an Indian Air Force from the Indian Air Force, pilot and astronaut with the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, will be the pilot on board the SpaceX Crew Dragon. Sawat Umański-Wenniewski, a Polish member of the European Space Agency Astronaut Reserve Class of 2022, and Tibor Kapu, a Hungarian member of the Hungarian To Orbit, or HUNAR, astronaut program, will serve as mission specialists. These 4 astronauts will spend up to 14 days docked to the ISS after launching from the NASA's Kennedy Space Center on a Falcon 9 rocket. Following stage separation, the booster will target a touchdown at Landing Zone 1 at Cape Canaveral. Next up, let me check my time here, 10:20, we're good. June 23rd, 24 will be the launch of GOSAT GW on a H-2A rocket. This will be from Launch Pad 1 at Taganakashima Space Center in Japan. The H-2A rocket will launch the Global Observing Sat for Greenhouse Gases and Water Cycle, or GOSAT GW, a Japanese Earth observing satellite. Roughly 6,300 pounds, the satellite will operate in a sun-synchronous orbit at an altitude of 414 miles. This spacecraft comes with a partnership between the Japanese Ministry of Environment, National Institute of Environmental Studies, and the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency. The 2 primary instruments are the Total Anthropogenic and Natural Emissions Mapping Spectrometer 3, or TANSO-3, and the Advanced Microwave Scanning Radiometer 3, or AMSR-3. This will be the 50th and final launch of the H-2A rocket, a real workhorse for the Japanese space program. In June will be the launch of Transporter 14. This is from Vandenberg, SLC-4E. This rocket will launch dozens of payloads in the latest, the smallest rideshare program called Transporter. This mission, dubbed Transporter 14, will include a variety of customers, including MayaSat-1, capsule from the European Space Agency, the OTV, an orbital transfer vehicle from Iraq Space, and 3 MRES Pocket Cubes from AMSAT-DL. The Falcon 9 first stage booster will perform a return to landing site touchdown at landing zone 4 less than 8 minutes after liftoff. And I'll do one more of these. We have also in the summer of this year, Falcon 9 will be launching tracers from Vandenberg, SOC4E. The NASA tracers, or tandem right reconnection and cusp electrodynamics reconnaissance satellites, as the primary payload for the rideshare mission, secured through the agency's VADR contract, providing new opportunities for space and science and technology payloads. The 2 tracer satellites are designed to study the interaction of the sun's solar particles and how they interact with the Earth's magnetic field to better understand the impacts of solar activity on Earth. The mission is conducted through a partnership between NASA, the University of Iowa, Southwest Research Institute, the University of New Hampshire, and the Small Space Sciences Laboratory at the University of California, Berkeley, and the University of California, Los Angeles. Secondary payloads have not been announced for this mission as of yet. Now I'm going to skip over to the satellite passages that will be coming up over the next few days. The International Space Station has several passes, 2 of them that are pretty good. We have on May 24th, minus 2.0 magnitude at 22:18 in the evening out of the north-northwest, reach its highest point at 23 degrees at 22:21, and it will fall into shadow at that same time. Then we have on the 25th, minus 1.3 magnitude at 21:31 in the evening. It reaches its highest point at the north-northeast at 21:33, and it'll fall to the east-northeast at 21:35. So it's a lower but pretty complete pass. May 26th has a fantastic pass. This one's minus 3.7 magnitude. This will be at 22:18 out of the northwest. It reaches its highest point in the north-northeast at 71 degrees, and then it'll fall to the north-northeast. Well, this one does go into shadow, but it'll be extremely bright at 22:22. Tiangong, that's the Chinese space station, has a couple of good passes, well, several actually. We have May 21st. This one will be minus 0.3 magnitude at 5:30 a.m. It reaches its highest point at 32 degrees at 5:33:28, and it'll fall to the east at 5:36. On May 23rd, we have a good pass, minus 1.3 magnitude at 5:05 in the morning. Reaches its highest point at 51 degrees at 5:08. It'll fall to 5:11 to the east-northeast. Then we have May 24th, minus 1.7 magnitude, 5:41 in the morning again. 5:44 is the highest point at 42 degrees, and it'll fall to the southeast at 5:47. And then finally, pass on May 26th, minus 2.2 magnitude, 21:45 in the evening, reach its highest point at 21 east at 21:50. The Tiangong is continuing to expand. I believe it's got 4 modules along with the solar arrays, so it is getting very bright. Not quite as bright as the International Space Station, but it's getting there. And of course, it will survive beyond the International Space Station. So it's well worth your time to go out and see both of these. I had the opportunity of seeing Tiangong 2, which was an earlier prototype, and the ISS go over at the same time. That was rather impressive. It'd be fun to do that again sometime when the 2 of them happen to be in the sky at the same time. Back to you, Brenda. This is KE5 ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, we had 18 check-ins tonight, 18 hams participating on the air. Thanks for all who checked in this evening. We hope you join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussions about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful Internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is WB50.L, Brenda. I'll be closing this net at 10:27 p.m. local time, returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 72, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. But wait, one more net, the Afterglow net. I'm going to ask Tom, KE5ICX, to tell us what time we'll be back here.
Thank you, Brenda. We will be back in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That's plenty of time to go make your 4-minute microwave popcorn and talk about what is arguably considered one of the worst movies ever made. And believe it or not, it's been rated even lower than The Creeping Terror, which is probably one of, at least on the bottom 5. And you thought Plan 9 from Outer Space was terrible. No. There's worse films than that. Come back in 5 minutes. You can hear all about it and participate if you've seen this gem. Back in 5. This is KE5ICX.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
Okay, bring your microwave popcorn over to the radio. Make sure you don't goop up the microphone because, you know, it's sticky stuff. And we'll get started with tonight's Afterglow movie. This one is called Monster A Go-Go. It's a 1965 American science fiction horror film directed by Bill Rebane and Herschel Gordon Lewis, who remained uncredited in association with this film. This film is considered to be one of the worst films ever made. Now, both of them are known for schlock science fiction films. Bill Rebane, who did the original filming for the thing, ran out of money for the film, so he never could complete it. So Herschel Lewis came in and bought the film from him so that he could fill out a double feature bill. And so Monster A Go-Go was the B feature. But the problem was that there was a 4-year difference between when the movie was filmed and additional scenes were added, and the actors changed or were unavailable and made for an incomprehensible mess. Let me tell you the plot. The plot concerns an American astronaut, Frank Douglas, who mysteriously disappears from his spacecraft as it parachutes to Earth. The policemen in one scene inspect the landing site of Douglas's capsule and notice a burn patch, only to dismiss it as a prank. The vanished astronaut is apparently replaced by and turned into a huge radioactive humanoid monster. This is revealed when it comes to the scene and kills off Dr. Logan. A team of scientists and military men also attempts to capture the monster, and at one point succeed and imprison it in the lab, which we never see, only to have it escape. Neither the capture nor the escape are ever shown, and both are simply mentioned by the narrator. At the end of the film, the scientists corner the monster in a sewer under Chicago, but the monster suddenly disappears. The scientists receive a telegram stating that Douglas is in fact alive and well, and having been rescued from the North Atlantic, perhaps implying the monster was an alien impersonating Douglas. Very poor impersonation, I would guess. The narrator provides the film's infamous closing narration, which I will read now. As if a switch had been turned, as if an eye had been blinked, as if some phantom force of the universe had made a move eons beyond our comprehension. Suddenly, there was no trail. There was no giant, no monster, no thing called Douglas to be followed. There was nothing in the tunnel but the puzzled men of courage who suddenly found themselves alone with shadows and darkness! Exclamation point. With the telegram, one cloud lifts and another descends. Astronaut Frank Douglas rescued alive. Well, at a normal size, some 8,000 miles away in a lifeboat with no memory of where he's been or how he was separated from his capsule. Then who or what has landed here? Is it here yet? Or has the cosmic switch been pulled? Case in point, the line between science fiction and science fact is microscopically thin. You have witnessed the line being shaved even thinner. But is the menace with us, or is the monster gone? And we'll be spending the rest of our lives in the future. Well, that's the other film that, never mind. At any rate, critical reception has been predominantly negative, with the film regarded as being one of the all-time worst. All movie gave the film a negative review, calling it an incoherent and the film calling it garbage. Dennis Schwartz of the Oz's World Movie Reviews gave the film a negative review. In his review of the film, Schwartz called it one of the most incoherent films ever made because the plot line can't be explained rationally, nor are the characters clearly defined. When reviewing the film, HorrorNews.net also knows the reason behind its negative reputation. Quote, the film itself falls into the worst category with not only a lethargic presentation, but with its odd-pieced editing style. Some scenes pop in and out of nowhere that really don't seem to have much to do with the previous scene. Others are typical conversation scenes that are just edited back and forth in a haphazard way. I think the film stands better as a piece to be mocked and laughed at than as a real piece of important cinema. In fact, you may find humor in why they felt the need that it needed some hipster dance scenes thrown in to sell more tickets is beyond me, but the result is so odd that it deserves a laugh. It's classic B-grade mishmash that only has appeal in its disjointed effort. With that, I will make one comment. I will say the most entertaining part of the entire movie was the opening credits with the music that was repeated during the weird dance number with the kids, the very old teenagers dancing. So take it for what it's worth. The dance number was great. The opening music number, the same, was great. But the rest of the movie, not so much. Okay, with that, I'm going to tell you what the rules are. Most people do know, but if you're listening in and you want to communicate, you are welcome to do so if you've not seen this film. In fact, you may have a better understanding of motion pictures by not having seen this film and can offer your help to those of us who have. So, we will take first check-ins. Did you call sign your name, and did you see this fine film? Then we will go in and talk about the plot. If you can even think there is one, you might want to tell us, the rest of us, what it is. That'll be the first round. Second round is characterization, of which there's very little, but lots of characters. And the third, special effects, such as the cardboard spacecraft that landed in a field somewhere near Chicago. And it really does look like a cardboard spacecraft. And then you can determine, is this the worst movie you've ever seen, or is there something even more terrible lurking in the darkness, waiting to be exposed? So let's get started. I'll take check-ins. Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie, Monster Go-Go, from 1965? Let's go.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill and Irving. Yes, I saw this movie.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia and Fort Worth. Yes, saw this.
WB5OZL, Brenda in Dallas. Yes, I saw this movie.
The enthusiasm just cannot be understated. Everyone checking in sounds like somebody's pulling out their nails or something, or they just came in from a torture session. So, at any rate, we've got Bill, N5DB, in Irving, yes, he saw the film. NV5F, Virginia, over in Fort Worth, she meekly said, yes, she saw the film. And Brenda, WB5OZL, in Dallas, yes, she saw the film. Others would like to check in. Even if you haven't seen the film, it's okay. You can check in.
Kilo Bravo 9, Oscar Kilo, Sean, Fort Worth. Yes, I did see this film.
Okay, we pulled one more in. 89 SOK. Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, he saw the film. Anyone else? I'll give you another chance. Let's see. Do I see anyone on Echolink? No, not really. But anyone else like to check in? This is your last chance on this first round. Please come with your call. Okay, well, we'll go with who we've got. This may go fast. It certainly will go faster than the movie did. Let's start at the top. That would be Bill. He was the first one to boldly sort of check in. Bill, you get to tee up this one. What did you think? How was the plot for Monster A Go-Go from 1965?
Oh, thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. As you alluded earlier, it probably would have been a better movie if we'd had more go-go. More a go-go. We didn't have enough of the a go-go. Of course, the a go-go had nothing to do with the movie. And as far as the monster goes, it was completely nonsensical. I mean, what can you say? Well, we can talk about, I guess some of the things involving the poor quality of the movie reflect on the plot. So, I mean, at the first, the cheapness, I should say, of the movie, they had some stock footage of a helicopter. Why? They didn't have to go out and film anything. They just took that stock footage. Why were these people fried? They got anywhere near the astronaut / monster, and they fried. At some point, they said if they were within 25 miles of this guy, they would be fried. At other places, they said 25 feet. I think they were just making up things as they went along and just throwing things out there that were completely nonsensical. Why was he a giant? Why did radiation do this? How can you take an antidote to radiation and it changes the distance at which you would be fried if you were near him? Why were there two Dr. Logans, the original one and his brother? According to what I read on Wikipedia, 4 years after the original movie, when they tried to redo some things, add some scenes, the original Dr. Logan looked so different, they used another guy and called him his brother. But I thought that was very strange during the play. You're going along and there's Dr. Logan. There's one Dr. Logan, and he dies. And then there's a different Dr. Logan, and you say, what in the world? It's his brother. How stupid. They had the long, early 1960s cars. Did you notice that? They had humongous trunks in those cars. They were a mile long, and they all drove those big monster things. They drove them everywhere. They drove them out in the pastures and the fields and everywhere. Yeah. What else? Let's see. The narrator, the narrator comes on, and the narrator describes things. The narrators, when they're leaving a go-go after the dancing, and the kids, although they look pretty old for kids, were making out in the car. narrator that comes on and says, what would have happened if they'd made a different choice that night? Oh boy, this is the stupidest narrator I've ever heard. And of course we had a girl screaming several times at the top of their bloody throats. What else about the plot bothered me? They wasted the first Dr. Logan. He wasted all this time walking around in a field with some instrument. They don't tell you what. I didn't hear him say what the instrument was. He's carrying this thing around. He's not even really pointing it at things. He's just carrying it around, and he walks all over the place. That wasted quite a bit of time. I guess that was the cheapest thing to film. One guy walking around in the field. What else can I say? I think Dr. Kramer, the woman in the lab, she was really mistreated. They acted like they didn't trust anything she said. They made her get all these logs out. She was a little offended by it. That was kind of a weird plot point. The decontamination spray later on in the movie. Come on. Radiation decontamination spray. And then, of course, the astronaut coming down in the North Atlantic. They never show us this. And it was all a big, what was it? Was it a dream? Was it an alien creature coming down trying to make believe he was the astronaut? This had to have the stupidest added plot points I've ever seen. Just completely, and the end of it is the biggest one. So as far as plot, that was just totally yanked around in a nonsensical way. This one pretty much beats all the others. However, some other movies we've seen have been just pretty much as stupid, have had much poorer production, have as bad production values as this one. This one had no production values, but other ones have had bad production values because they tried to simulate a spacecraft. This one didn't even bother. Like you said, they had the little cardboard thing for the capsule. They showed a stock helicopter photo, and the only other props in the whole thing were the big cars they were driving around and going into the lab. That was all. They didn't have to have any special effects or props or anything. And, of course, it's very confusing. There's so many people in this thing, and I don't know who any of them are, except there's two Dr. Logans, and there's the woman, Dr. Kramer, that gets treated badly in the lab. And there's Dr. Manning that comes in. We know who he is because he's wearing a different color. You can see that. He's a big guy, tall guy, with a light color. But everybody else's name, all these other guys in military uniforms and everything, I can't keep them straight. Who knows who they are? Who cares who they are? How about the kids at the party? Who knows who they are? Who cares who they are? Anyway, again, we need more a-go-go, less monster. And that's all from N5BB.
All right, very good. Thank you, Bill. Well, that was our first positive comments about the movie. Bill likes it. So next is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, what did you think? Did you enjoy the film as much as Bill did from KE5ICX?
Okay, thank you, Tom. Before I proceed, can you tell me how my signal is? I have improved my situation since TechNet earlier this evening, and I wanted to see if you're hearing me okay.
Yes, you're readable, you're fine. There's a little bit of popping, but you're all the way in Fort Worth, so that's to be expected. So your signal is just fine from KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you. I'm running probably about 35 watts, 35 to 40 watts, and I am on a tower. I'd like to think I was sounding a little bit better, but I kind of worked on improving things since last time. So, okay, well, overall, I'm going to disagree a little bit. I think there should have been. This had almost no monster in it. It should have been called Weird Sound Effects A Go-Go, because they were so short on money or time or ideas or creativity that in addition to a cardboard cutout space capsule, they had no monster. They kept saying, well, it's this giant version of this astronaut, and they couldn't even do some cheesy, thing where you get to see him, even if it's cheesy and looks composited or whatever. So, yeah, this was padded out like crazy. Like I said last night, they squeezed about 10 minutes worth of story into an hour and 8 minutes worth of movie. It was random dancing, which that's always been a thing. I remember movies when I was a kid in the 80s, and they would find a way to take a really thin plot and, paste something trendy like breakdancing, or roller skating or, something onto it, or a certain kind of music or some cool famous person that everybody liked. So, I think that they have the go-go part implying trendy dancing that by the time this movie came out was probably kind of passé and out of date. There was, making out and a weird, scary sound effect whenever the monster was, I guess, supposed to be nearby. That didn't really make sense to a radioactive giant that didn't turn out to be a giant. When we finally got to see him, he was not very giant. And then they just had the kind of rip-off ending where they didn't know what to do to end it, so they just said, "Oh, Frank is fine," and I mean, I'm happy for his wife. At the end, I thought, well, good. At least it's sort of a happy ending for somebody. Frank and his wife, he's still alive. She still has her husband. Who cares about whether or not there is going to be an alien or whatever? I didn't really care. So, anyway, the plot was obviously all cobbled together from random stuff that didn't really match or make sense, and everything that did make sense was mostly predictable and boring, and there was no creativity whatsoever. And I get it, maybe they just didn't have any money, but if you don't have any money to make a movie, don't take a bunch of cheap-looking stuff that has it was all just people running and screaming, from something you didn't get to see, and all the, random very bad dialogue and narration. Now, the narrator had a good voice, if he had something decent to say, that could have maybe carried the movie, but, it was basically explaining a plot that was definitely not there in any of the pictures. But the ending monologue you read says it all. It's like, well, let's add another 2 minutes to the end of this by having the narrator read some kind of, it was like the last chapter of an Arthur C. Clarke novel, where he can't just end a story. He's got to write some like long-winded philosophical analysis, you know, of kind of what he wants us to think about the story he just told. In case we didn't get it, you know, he wants us to know what the point of it is. And their point was, we have to tell you what this meant so that you can be tricked into thinking there was actually a story, that in case you weren't smart enough to get the story out of this terrible movie, you know, we've got to tell you there was a story, so you might actually think there was one when there really wasn't much of one. Yeah, this was an exercise in. I think every student filmmaker should watch this as an example of what not to do to make your film longer. So lots of boring stuff and stuff that just seemed like a lot of junk pieced together that didn't really make a lot of sense. You know, the narrator forced a frame around it, and the weird sound effects and people running and screaming. You know, I think I loved it just a little more than Bill in V5F.
Okay, good. Well, we got 2 thumbs up. Very good. Next is Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, what did you think of our movie this week, Monster A Go-Go from 1965?
This is WB50ZL. I'll give it 2 thumbs up, so that'll be a total of 4, I suppose, so far. I think I'm going to hire a narrator from my own life, and he can say things like, why did she choose to waste an evening watching this movie? Maybe she needed to make better choices. Maybe she's going to come to a bad end because of wasting all this time, and so forth. It would make my life more interesting if I had one of those narrators, right? Stupidest movie ever. I mean, really stupid. It made no sense. You know, I know they messed it up the first time around, but they shouldn't have tried to save it. They should have just left it somewhere to die instead of throwing more junk into it to try and make it a viable movie. There was no go-go in this. There was a dance, but I wouldn't call those go-go dancers, and they weren't wearing go-go boots. When I was young and in the 60s, I had a pair of go-go boots and short skirts. But, you know, they just were having a little hootenanny or something. A bunch of people dancing. There was nothing go-go about that at all. And to slap that term onto the monster is it's a non sequitur. It doesn't mean anything. They were just trying to get a catchy phrase. Hopefully, stupid kids would go see the movie. The good news is probably most of the young people going to the drive-in to see this movie were distracted in the back seat and didn't really see it, which is it's good because they probably jump off a cliff after watching this. Let's see, what else is wrong with this movie? The music was abhorrent. I don't know what it was. I don't know what that music even was. It was just somebody with a finger playing, you know, one note after another, like little kids do. They just play random notes. I think that's what happened here. They had a 4-year-old at a piano or organ or something, just playing random notes, and they made that their soundtrack. Let's see, what else about the plot? Okay. If that spaceship had come in from Earth, and crash landed there on the ground without parachutes, it would have been crumpled. It would have been a mess. And how come the guy was like a carrier for radiation poisoning? He didn't die, but everybody that he exposed himself to did. And they died very quickly, unlike real radiation poisoning, which would take you a few days or a few weeks to die. But not him. And I don't know what's up with that oatmeal facial he's doing. Maybe that'll improve his complexion, perhaps. And they stuck him in this room. Unless it was a lead-lined room, the radiation is going to the other rooms in that building. So they obviously didn't do any homework. All right, back to net. This is WB50ZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. Obviously, you are you do understand that trying to make sense of a nonsensical film and offering suggestions when it has so jumped the shark so early in the film is just, it's like trying to stop a flood from a broken dam with trying to put your finger in to stop it. It's impossible. There's nothing you can do to improve or even critically analyze the film because it was so badly done. Okay, but that's okay. We'll call it good. At least you tried. Oh, Sean, wake up. KB9SOK, you're up. Tell us what you think about the plot.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. I'm sorry there, Tom. You dropped when you were talking to Brenda, and I wasn't sure if you called me or not. But anyway, we'll start out with the positives of this movie. It was an hour and 8 minutes. Okay, now that we're done with the positives, we'll move on to the rest of it. As everybody said, this plot was pretty bad. You could pretty well break it down scene by scene and find, multiple holes in it. Everybody's already brought up most of them. But just simple dialogue could have been easily improved with just somebody proofreading it and just getting it bouncing off somebody. One of the scenes there is after the guy had captured, quote-unquote, the monster, the astronaut, and kept him locked up apparently for like 2 weeks and kept injecting him with the antidote. When he finally told somebody after he escaped, they kept asking, well, why'd you do it? Why'd you do it? Why'd you tell us? And his excuse was, oh, I don't know. I just did it. I was just did think of it. Just, I was just worried about saving him. Just a simple tweak of that dialogue would have made that better. Just, he could have easily came back and said, well, I didn't want the government to kill him if I told him where they was at. Anything could have improved that scene. So literally every scene pretty much followed that. And then obviously we've already talked about the ending was just completely made no sense. There's nothing wrong with leaving a mystery. Obviously the most popular one is 2001. But they show you, not really, they show you an ending, but they leave it to your imagination what really happened. This one, they actually told you what kind of happened, but didn't explain how it happened, and tried to make it like a mystery. And that's what you're supposed to contemplate, I guess, in this film. Is how did the monster magically disappear and then reappear in the ocean 8,000 miles away, but be perfectly fine? Which I try not to read about these movies before I watch it or review them, just so I go in,
not my mind already set in a certain way. So I didn't realize that the film ran out of money, and then somebody else picked it up and tried to finish it, and that makes a lot more sense why the ending was so just completely destroyed, or had no ending, because obviously they just needed to end it, and that's how they decided to do it, not spend any money. So obviously it didn't make for a very good movie. I'm glad this was at least a B movie, not the main draw to the theater or whatever other movie it was with, because it was pretty bad. And Bill, just to give you a little clarification on a couple of questions you had, is it wasn't the radiation that I guess made him a monster. It was the special injections that they were giving him to prevent him from getting radiation in space that was supposed to protect him, but they found with apparently the lab animals that it made them grow twice their normal size, and supposedly that's what actually turned him into the monster, because they gave him twice the dose right before he went into space without authorization, because they thought that would protect him, even knowing they already knew that it caused the animals to grow. So why they would move forward with that? Once again, major plot issue. Once again, they would never ever give somebody something like that, especially when it comes to space, without doing tons and tons and tons of research. Even though we know it's complete bogus that you can get a magic injection that would save you from getting radiation. But even at that, even if there was such a thing, especially if they tested on animals and didn't go well, they wouldn't give it to a human, right? So yeah, I mean, literally every scene of this movie had an issue, and there's no point in dragging out and talking about every scene, but it was just kind of crazy. I will say I don't think it's technically the worst we watched, but it was pretty bad. I still think Jetstream was worse. They actually spent real money, and it was still a horrible, horrible, horrible movie. And at least this movie, they didn't spend any money. But anyway, it's interesting, I guess, maybe in a way. At least some bad movies are fun because they're so bad. This one wasn't. But anyway, that's all I got. Back to that. KB9SOK.
All right, thank you, Sean. Yes, I understand. And that's all I'll say about that. Does anyone else want to check in to talk about Monster A Go-Go, our movie for this week from 1965? Please come with your call.
This is Whiskey 5, bacon, lettuce, tomato. Yes, I saw something called a movie.
Well, look who showed up. W5DLC. Bill, you're here. It's wonderful. I thought you abandoned us and you weren't going to participate in our fine frolic in this fine, fabulous, cinematic masterpiece, Monster A Go-Go. And here you are. You're about to share your wisdom, your understanding, your appreciation of fine cinema, as well as this film, which has nothing to do with fine cinema, but you never know. So, Bill, what did you think about the plot, W5DLC from KE5ICX?
Well, let me just say at the outset, I agree with Sean. The positive was an hour and a half, or hour and 8 minutes. Sorry, I was trying to lengthen the movie, I guess, in the suffering. I could speed it up to 3 times the rate on YouTube with a special account that just ended, but I may have to subscribe if we keep getting more movies like this. I may have to, I can go back to the 2 speed, so that cuts it down a little bit too. The other positive is being blind. I couldn't see the movie and the cardboard spaceship. So there's another positive I can think of. There should have been Monster A Go-Go away. I haven't seen Jetstream, so I cannot speak to whether that is the worst movie in comparison to this, so I will take Sean's word for it, but it's the worst movie that I've ever seen and heard and participated in watching. I'm up here for a trip to see family, and my sister looked at the picture on the Facebook page and she said, I think this movie's going to be pretty bad tonight, to me. And I said, yeah, it was pretty bad. The plot, it was so simple. It was not really complicated. You get a guy affected by, they want to protect him from radiation, and this stuff he gets to protect him from the radiation makes him a monster, and I don't know. Everybody's already said everything I could say about it, but I will say that I usually give movies like this a pass because I love the old 60s, 50s sci-fi movies. And, the only thing that I could see that would be positive as well is, maybe if you were on a date and, going to watch this movie and at a drive-in. But I didn't do that, and this was just horrible. And the narrator, I usually love narrators for movies, and I have to agree, even for somebody who's blind and loves narration on a movie, yeah, this is bad. It's just the acting I thought was horrible. And obviously being blind, I'm not into the dancing scenes and, things like that. I do wish I could have seen the cardboard spaceship, though. That probably would have been pretty cool. I had a friend and we made a cardboard spaceship when we were in 4th grade for a space film that we did, reenactment in class. We had to put on a play, and we had our cardboard spaceship and our laser pistols. And I think our play was much better than this movie. I won't belabor and beat a dead horse. That's all I really have. But my sister was laughing at the picture poster thing of the movie. So W5BLT.
Stream. I think it was it wasn't even made in the United States. It was made in Romania or something with American actors. And all of the scenes in the C-17 were done with Microsoft Flight Simulator. Very easy to tell from the fake pilots in the cockpit. And they used the Force in order to make the jet stream work better, because the jet stream has decided to take its vengeance out on humanity because it got pissed off by something when they fired the laser into the jet stream. The jet stream got angry. It's that bad. I don't know if it's as bad as this film, but it is very tough to sit through. It's noisy too, and it's got a weatherman in it who's not a very good weatherman, as you'll find out. So there you have it. So if you've got time to waste on a terrible movie and want to compare against Monster Go-Go, do that one. Of course, my favorite is always going to be The Creeping Terror, which I still consider even worse than this film, because it had a lot of narration in it too. Same sort of thing. Okay, let me talk about the film. First off, our narrator that we all hated was Bill Rebane himself, the first director of the film. He apparently had a decent voice and did the narration. I don't know if they enticed him back to be able to do the entire film. Maybe that's why some of the things that happened. No money, obviously, for the film, and all sorts of scenes that were just put in to make it over an hour long, so you could have the double feature, which is what they were aiming for, to finish off the film. And who knows what scenes were, well, we know what scenes were added. We know that the one guy and his brother is the same person. He just ended up, either he had lost all his hair during that 4 years on his head, or he had no wig or toupee to wear for the second half. He changed quite a bit, so it made it quite strange. We didn't know what the characters did or who they were. We didn't even know the organization that was involved. We knew the military was involved. Looks like maybe the Army, although you would think with NASA it'd be the Air Force. But what do I know? Hard to say. How do you describe what was happening? Why was the dinner scene, and we're going to go dancing, and there's no music? That was one of the things. They go to that gal's house, who I guess is a brother, or the astronaut's the brother, and say, well, the mission was pretty successful. We got the capsule back. We just don't know where Frank is, you know. And geez, come on, and lighten up a little bit. The mission was a success. So that didn't make a lot of sense, I suppose. My favorite things, of course, was the dial. The sound was all over the place. And I know that's a technical aspect, but I'm craving to try and figure out what the hell they're saying. And even when I do understand what the hell they're saying, I'm not sure what the hell they're saying, because none of what they're telling me makes any sense. And they're going and looking for our astronaut, but they're doing all their research inside of a lab. Aren't you supposed to go out and look for the astronaut? I don't know. They didn't seem to get very far with that. But I guess that was the scientific part of the thing, while Sherlock Holmes, with his pipe, is going and looking for Frank, but never does find Frank. They went up to, the boyfriend and the girlfriend went up to the snooker thing to go make out, and we hear the dog barking incessantly. Poor Fido wants out. Nobody's going to let Fido out. And all of a sudden they go strangle him. The very next scene is our intrepid investigator is right there. He isn't called out. They don't show up in a vehicle. They just appear out of nowhere. Here we are. That was really quite interesting. I guess they didn't need that scene. Then there was another scene where they go and it's daylight, and they're going to the crime scene, and it's dark. It's daylight in one scene, and then they walk out of the scene, and in the next scene they're walking in. It's dark. It's nighttime. You could hear also, there was a scene where they were talking. You could hear the camera running incessantly. That was in the house. It looks like it was a real house, and it went on and on. You hear the camera sprockets turning, the cams turning very loudly in the process, and then it was all one scene, except for that one close-up scene when they went with Billy, the kid. Well, the mission was a success, Billy. Don't worry about your father. He's not going to be coming home anytime soon. He got a promotion, but he's going to on a mission to Antarctica for the next 25 years, so don't go looking for him. I don't know. Very strange. Oh, I don't know what else to say. It was a pretty terrible film. There wasn't much to make fun of. Even MST3K, when they did it, they couldn't make a lot of fun of it. I have not seen their version of it, but I understand that it was really difficult to do because there wasn't much to go with. Everybody's kind of like whacked out in the film. So I don't know. All right, well, there you have it. That's what I got to say about that. So, not much. I'm sure with the rest of you it didn't really work out that well. Monster Go-Go was recommended not by Brenda, but by another unknown person who insisted they wanted to see the film, but it does not participate in our late night things. But I'm going to ask somebody to go over to his house and throw toilet paper in his trees, because he deserves it for coming up with this fine film. Okay, I guess we'll go cautiously to. Let's break this one up a little bit. I'm going to say let's do special effects because that's more fun than the characterization. So I'm going to do special effects as round 2, and then we can talk about characterization after that because there isn't much. So, Bill, we'll start with you. Let's talk special effects. What do you think about that or music, that technical aspects of the film? N5BB from KE5ICX.
This is N5BB. I say, yuck. You got the cardboard space capsule. You got the, like you say, the oatmeal makeup on the guy's face who doesn't look like a giant. And by the way, he's got his kind of torn up looking astronaut spacesuit still on and boots, which never changes. Like, is he eating something? Is he changing his clothes? Is he taking a shower? I mean, this thing goes on for quite a while, and he still looks the same. Special effects. Like I say, they just put some stock helicopter footage in. We didn't see anything. We didn't see any spacecraft other than that cardboard thing sitting there. No flying craft. We didn't see anybody controlling the equipment. The only thing we saw that was anything like somebody doing anything technical was in the lab when they were looking through microscopes, or they had all these little vials of fluid around. They were talking about the injections to try to prevent the radiation, which made no sense. What other special effects? Special effects. I can't think of any special effects. I mean, the people that were killed and burned up, they didn't even do very much makeup or anything there. Sometimes they just kind of pulled the sheet down and the people's faces looked like a reasonable face. I don't know. They didn't even make an attempt there. And, I mean, if they showed big boils on somebody's arms or something else like that, or discoloration, but no. They made no attempt. Maybe that's the best thing we could say about so many things in this movie. They made no attempt. I can't think of any other special effects. The music was laughable. And like I say, the narrator, to me, was overbearing. He had a great voice, but why? I guess they thought that they couldn't film anything that would explain what was going on, so they had to throw the narrator in there to explain it. N5BB.
All right, thank you, Bill. You know what? I agree with you. I think that nobody tried. There was no attempt to make this movie work, and it showed throughout the film. There was nothing to it that was of redeeming value, except for the go-go dancing and the opening music. That was fine. I enjoyed the heck out of that, but that was it. And I think that was a fluke, because if they could have cared less, they could have even ruined that. So that's the only redeeming part of the film. And by the way, that's not what everybody says. If there is anything good to be said about the film, that's what they say, the opening sequence. Okay, Virginia, NV5F, we've skipped characterization for now. What do you think about the special effects, music, whatever you want? Go ahead. Hit us with your best shot.
Wow. Well, there was very little characterization or acting, but there was even less special effects. So if you're trying to torture us by making us pad our answers with something about special effects in the same way that the people who made this movie had to pad this movie to make it the length of a movie, then if that's what you're trying to do, then you have succeeded. I mean, you padded your last one with a review of Jetstream, which I haven't gotten to see, but if it's anything, I'm wondering, I want to see it now. You're making me want to see that movie. I want to see if it's any worse or noisier than those tornado twister movies. So it's got my interest on Jetstream. Yeah, this didn't really have special effects. There were things, a very few things that resembled effects, and they definitely weren't special. It was an avoidance of special effects. It was like, how can we trick people into thinking this is a science fiction movie with some sounds? They had some weird sound effects every time the monster was present or in the area, and that, I guess, I think my comment was, is that what radioactivity sounds like? Because, and then they had the musical stuff where it sounded literally like a little kid, like banging on a piano, which I thought was hilarious. But I think the best character in this was the narrator, and he, just because his voice was good, but he just rambled and just, filled out. It was just another means to fill things out. But I liked what Brenda said. I grew up in a generation where we watched movies, and we watched them fervently, and we still do, and we grew up watching them over and over again on cable or renting them and becoming very attached to our movies. And I think some of us are probably disappointed that that real life doesn't really go like a movie. So I like Brenda's idea to hire a narrator to sort of impose some kind of plot. Like, I would like a narrator to impose a plot onto my life, like a really good plot. Because, things have gotten kind of monotonous. So my life actually sometimes feels like this movie felt to watch. And so maybe if I had a narrator saying how exciting or interesting or philosophically deep or mysterious things were, maybe I would be a little more excited every day. So yeah, not much to say about effects, characters, music, narration, or Jetstream. Yeah, I think I've padded my answer sufficiently, and not really answered the question sufficiently at the same time. So I think
you make a point.
I have succeeded.
I will not defend myself in any of that and padding my answer because there was nothing to say. And as far as torturing you with the special effects rather than the characterization, probably. Okay, next up is Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, what do you think about special effects in our fine film this evening from KE5ICX?
This is WB50ZL. Nothing special about those effects. Not special at all. I think this movie summed up the posters there on the stream, and the byline in it says, "An astronaut went up, a guess what came down." That is so stupid. The astronaut goes up and his craft just lands in a field, and nobody seems to care much. Every space flight I've ever seen, they're racing to recover the aircraft or the spacecraft and the astronauts, and it was lost. They don't normally lose these, and of course they put them in the ocean so they don't explode or get crushed. But it's like it was just sort of lost and just happened to come down in this field. Sound effects were awful. Music was awful. Cardboard spacecraft was awful. And, I'm old. I remember go-go. I would not look at this dance scene and go, oh, they're go-go dancing. That's not what go-go dancing is. They were just dancing. Go-go dancing. A go-go dancer is very specific, and it was very common back in the 60s. Frankly, I'm not sure in 61 there was such a thing as a go-go dancer. 65, 69, yeah. I think they just grabbed onto the latest thing and go, oh, let's look hip. So we'll put this absolutely unrelated phrase on our movie, and people will be suckered in. Let's see, special effects. Helicopter footage was okay, but there just wasn't much in the way of special effects aside from that. And certainly there wasn't any story, and the acting was awful, and the music was awful. So before it's over, I'm going to find something good to say about this movie, I promise. All right, back to net, W5ZL.
Well, I think you use thesaurus so you can come up with more words to use that are synonyms for awful. Okay, next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, can you give us something that goes beyond awful? You're up. Special effects, music, whatever you want to talk about. Okay, E5ICX.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. I've got some words, but I don't think they're appropriate for radio. Yeah, it's just, awful is just a good word for this movie. Well, the special effects, I think everybody's already covered. There's not a whole lot of special effects other than the crappy attempt at some, I guess it's supposed to be burns on his skin, the ripped up clothing. We had a laboratory that kind of looked like maybe a laboratory, but maybe high school level laboratory. The cardboard cut out, the things that they were calling radiation detectors. Looked like they were walking around those little projector scopes. I think they were supposed to be radiation detectors, and that was about it for special effects. The music wasn't great. The sound effects were horrible, or awful, which is apparently our new favorite word. Really awful. To me, one of the biggest, the plot was technically the worst part of the movie. The second worst thing was just the audio in general. At different times, the audio quality of just the people speaking changed all the time. Sometimes they were faint. Sometimes it had an echo. And I think you used the time you could hear the camera in a few scenes. Audio is just so important, and it's not that expensive to do well. And they didn't do it here. And just strange choices for sound effects. And even the one scene, which was just another filler scene, when the nameless scientist that no one was allowed to know who he was that showed up there midway through the movie, was getting off the plane, they showed him slowly walking to the car and getting in, and the whole time they just had a shot of under the plane, and all you could hear was the plane roaring at an insanely loud volume. Once again, you weren't able to hear the car or anything they were saying. Just little things like that, just pretty much a lot like the quality quality of the writing, you can pretty much pick out audio issues with every single scene. And of course, that just makes the movie really, really hard to watch. You know, at the end of the day, yeah, I didn't understand what they were saying. I couldn't hear them good enough. But we have watched a few movies with the audio was so bad, you literally couldn't make out the words. But this one was just a choice that they made. It's like it was almost intentional, or I don't know. It was just not good. Other than that, no. One thing I did forget the first round was, in a way, it almost seems like they tried to have this with the narrator, the way he explained the explanation, almost like they tried to give it a Twilight Zone episode feel. But unfortunately, this was just, you know, Twilight Zone way much better. Even the worst Twilight Zone episodes were better written than these. So anyway, that's all it for this round. Back to that, KP9, that's okay.
Very good. Thank you, Sean. Next up, Bill, W5BLT. Bill, what do you got for us on special effects sound? You're going to have to, this is going to be a tough one, I think, for you, but this movie was almost incoherent, so I'm not sure how you're going to respond to this one, but what are you going to tell us? What do you surmise as far as the technical aspects of our fine film from KE5ICX?
Well, the audio was horrible. It was hard to make out. I kept having to adjust the volume. I'll have to go back and watch Jetstream now that you reminded me of that horrible film. I'll go back and watch it again, but I think it might have been easier to understand the actors in that one. And I remember the horrible weatherman. It's a toss-up between the worst movie, and I haven't seen the what is it, The Creature, and the other one you're talking about, so I'll have to go back and watch that. But anyway, you know, I think the Geiger counter sounded real. I thought it was going to be okay with the first opening music, and then it just went downhill from there. I was thinking about the narrator, though. Like, it's the narration for my life. At first, I had the Star Wars record album when I was growing up that was narrated. It was the soundtrack to the movie on it, and then it had narration. So it had the actors' voices and the sound effects and the music, and they had a narrator. It was almost kind of like the first descriptive video of a movie. I don't know if that's where they got the idea from it for people who are blind, but it was great because it gave me every scene of the movie. And I was thinking about that narrator, but then I decided I want the narrator that did The Invaders for my life. And, in his voice, it started one night when W5BLT got his license as KA9UDN and switched to W5BLT and stopped in a diner to have a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich and discovered aliens were trying to invade the Earth. I thought that would be my narrator. And then he realized he just had a bad dream and fell asleep during a really bad science fiction movie. So that's really all I got. And I think we're all like politicians now. We're trying to pad our answers here, not really say much of anything. No, seriously, though. What do you say about this movie? It's a winner, though, in a really bad way. And I want the narrator for The Invaders, and that's all I got out of this. It's well worth it now, because now as I go through my life, I can hear that guy's voice narrating my life.
Okay, Bill, I wasn't sure if you petered out, but I think you were done. It's okay. I'll make my comments. Boy, the sound on this thing was terrible, and I agree with you entirely. We had birds singing, and it was really we had the field scenes. There was the birds tweeting away. We had no, you had no Foleys there. Normally in a movie you would have footsteps. You could hear brush. You could hear gravel or something like that. They would always add those sounds. There was no sound. The only sound they added was the birds. And then when the guy and the gal were making out, we heard the dog barking, that same wolf over and over and over again. And then we had the phone ring and the infamous scene in the laboratory where the guy goes ring for the phone ringing. Yet when they're in the house, the phone rings, which I guess was really somebody calling the house. You could hear the phone ring, multiple rings. There must have been an extension somewhere in that real house. So you could hear the thing ring. It was very loud. No problems there. Then you had audio that was all over the place, such as at the at the police station laboratory. There's multiple laboratories, of course. You could barely hear the dialogue, or the audio from the radio, the world's worst transceiver in the police car without any antenna on it. Maybe that was why the signal was so terrible. The audio was so terrible as they had no antenna on the vehicle. I don't know. Very odd. The whole thing was just terrible. Let's see. But anyway, I think what happened was that they did not record the audio, or they lost the audio. And in the movie, it was, you asked me about the film, and it's called The Creeping Terror. The Creeping Terror. And it's a science fiction film, and a spacecraft lands, and two rolls of carpet come out and wreak havoc on the world, eating up women, scantily clad women who couldn't run away from a carpet. And the carpet would catch up. I swear, it really were, these are carpets that would move, and then they would be eaten by the carpets. And they had to pull themselves inside the carpets because the carpets had a hard time eating and consuming them. So there's that. But what happened was that in one of the scenes, I think there's a boat scene where they're out on it, and they were recording it with a recorder, and they lost all the audio. So they had to find a narrator to go through and do like this police procedural. And then Bill went and looking for Anne. Anne, he found Anne, and Anne explained, since there was no audio, we don't hear Anne. Anne explained the circumstances by which she was abducted by the carpet. And Bill responded with, "That's horrible, Anne." And then Anne said, "You're right." For the film. So that's an example of the narration gone crazy because they lost the audio. I think this is probably the case with this, or there was no audio and it was planned to insert the Foleys and all that later on. But who knows? Who knows what was on the mind of Bill Rebane when he did his part, or the other guy who did his part. All we know is neither of them, two halves do not make a whole in this film, except it makes a big hole in the plot. Okay, oh geez. Well, I'm going to go ahead and open it up, and anybody has any comments, you can do characterization if you want, or anything else at this point. If you've got something else you want to add to our fine film that hasn't been added, or something you just want to say, or if you just want to shout at the moon.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo.
NV5F.
Well, Virginia, I think you're the last man standing on this one. We've all kind of beat ourselves and this film to death. So go ahead, give it your final signature on our fine film.
NJFBB also. You missed me, Tom.
Okay, gotcha, Bill. Anyone else? All right, let's start with Virginia. ND5F. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll first comment on technical things. I think, Tom, what happens is sometimes you're still talking, and all Starlink drops, and the repeater ends, and I think you were possibly still speaking when Bill dropped his call sign, because he dropped his before I dropped mine, and you just didn't hear it. So might be something to consider in the all-star world. I'm not sure what would cause that. Anyway, so a couple things. I would like to speak on the technical aspect of audio. Audio is always, and I know you're a fan of talking about audio, it's always sort of a dead giveaway about people just not being very competent as filmmakers. You can kind of fudge your way through shots and editing and shooting, and sometimes that stuff's even horrible too. But to me, bad audio screams amateurish. Having gone through getting a film degree, will tell you that even when I go back and watch things I did when I was in film school, even when I was at the senior level, I was, the audio is a dead giveaway. It's usually the least refined thing, and my guess is that they were just using incidental audio and didn't even consider the fact that most well-made films redub, loop a lot of the audio, even a lot of the dialogue in professional films. Unless you've got really, really great, miking setups, you're gonna have to loop a lot of your audio. So I think that they just were probably depending on incidental audio and didn't know better, possibly. And on the subject of narration, and this would have been a fun third round if we had all done it, but per Brenda's brilliant suggestion, which I took up in the last over, and then Bill kind of ran with it about who would narrate his life. So then I thought, well, I would discuss my very quick assessment of who I would want to narrate my life, who I would want to hear narrating my life. And I like to think it was something sophisticated like Douglas Rains, the voice of HAL 9000, as he narrated the documentary Universe. That would be lovely. He has a wonderful voice, and but mine would probably be more like Jim Parsons, the actor who plays Sheldon Cooper in Big Bang Theory, but he would be narrating my life as the boob from the movie Home, whose name is O the boob, who was also voiced by Jim Parsons. That would probably be who would be narrating my life. So, and it would at least keep me rather amused. And that movie, the character does do some narrating at the beginning and the end of the movie, so I can kind of imagine what that would sound like, having a six-legged purple alien narrating my life. So anyway, I thought I would just end on something fun, and yeah, I think I've thoroughly padded this answer, and I will send it back to Net in V5F.
Excellent answer and great padding. I think you have a future. Maybe you could be a inspired by Bill Rebane and can take and pad out with the best of them. Okay, and I'm not sure. Yeah, I didn't know that Bill was first and then you, but somehow I missed him, so I don't know. Not quite sure. I've got both open, but I can't listen to both at the same time. I've got Echolink open, and I got All-Star Link. One provides the audio for the stream, and the other one's what I use. And so if I put them both up, and with a slight delay between the two, I'd be insane after about 5 minutes. So there you have it. Okay, Bill, N5DB, what do you got?
Well, thank you, Tom. This is N5DB. I agree with Virginia's excellent technical analysis. It sounded like All-Star just kind of dropped you. And after several seconds later, nothing happened. So that's why I came back. I couldn't tell what was going on, but I think that's what happened. It sounded like it dropped you in mid-sentence, and there was just dead silence for a while. So we didn't hear your last, several phrases there. Anyway, some things people said, like Sean and you, reminded me of some scenes that bothered me. One of them was, I think it was Sean talking about they were at the airport, and the airplane came in, and they were getting in this car, and they changed, what seemed to me, the way I remember it, is they changed the camera angle. They had a camera angle from the other side, and it looked like it was under the airplane. So in the frame around nearby, you see parts of the airplane, and then more in the distance, you see the car and them getting into it, and the sound during that shot changes. It's like there's a roaring noise that starts or goes away. It's very annoying. It sounds like there's some raw footage there that they edited in there, like bad editing, and or bad framing, or I don't know what it was. Bad camera location, combination of all the above. But that just annoyed the heck out of me, that particular shot. It was unnecessary, and it was annoying. One of the other things that was incredibly annoying was there at the start of the movie. As Tom mentioned, they have no antennas on these cars. You got to remember, radio cars at that time had these really long antennas. This was low-band VHF, sometimes even 20 or 30 megahertz. It was really long antennas. Nope, no antennas in the cars. And they didn't even look like cop cars. Like I say, there were these big, long sedans. And so there's two cops in the car. And so it's so annoying because you listen to the dialogue as they're going around and talking. And the guy with the microphone he hears the other guy, the person on the radio, say something, and he responds to him. And then the other guy in the car says, essentially, what did he say? So the guy repeats what the guy just said on the radio. The other guy is sitting right there next to the radio. So if you go back and listen to those scenes, which I would not make you do, because I'm not going to go back and listen to them. But if you did go back and listen to them, you would hear the stupidest dialogue in the world. There's two people, they got a radio there. They're talking on the radio. And then one of them essentially says, what did the guy say? They're both listening to it. They're both listening to it, and like one of them isn't even listening. Even what's right there, it's stupid. It's the worst. It's horrible. Some other things I did not understand involving characterization. You had you had the mother of the boy, the young boy, and she's evidently the wife of the astronaut. And this other guy that's in their house visiting is either I couldn't figure out is it her husband's brother? Is it a family friend? Is it her cousin? Whoever this other guy is, they seem to be very friendly. And the next scene, what do? They're at this candlelit dinner. What? Her husband is maybe dead, whatever's happening. They're trying to hide the truth from her. And then they're at this candlelit dinner, and they're kind of talking, remembering some maybe intimate things between them when they were younger or something. That's why I interpreted that, the whole thing. And then the guy gets a telephone call that they've got to go and run away. I did not understand that scene at all. Why was that scene there? What? And I didn't understand the relationships between these characters. They muddled it up. It's like they were trying to throw a love interest in there, some kind of romantic thing. Her husband's maybe gone, and somebody else is going to try to kind of jump in. And I don't know. It just, they put various things in this, and they just kind of cobbled them all up. They just kind of threw them all together and tried to make it make sense. There was one particular scene, I think it was in the lab, where the people are talking and they're kind of changing the camera or something, and it's very obvious that they had a separately filmed scene dumped in there. The audio sounded different. The pictures looked different, but they just kind of mangled that in there with very bad editing. And as mentioned earlier, the worst thing was the second Dr. Logan. He's in there trying to explain why he had hid all of this about the monster astronaut they locked up in a room in a lab. By the way, how did they do that without other people realizing it? Anyway, and he's trying to explain it, and his explanation, as I think Sean said, is the most ineffectual, weak, stupid, poorly written, nobody would believe it thing. And yet, they believed it. What happened because of that? 2 people died, maybe. Or at least one person died. People died because of it, and they were endangering the city of Chicago. Why? I don't know. He was trying to play around with his things and put them in the back of the lab building there. Anyway, bad movie. As I said earlier, Tom, they made no attempt in 5BB. Good night.
All right, very good. Thank you, Bill. I agree. And I think you hit the nail on the head. They made no attempt to make a good film in any way, shape, or form. This was strictly a monetary thing done to come up with a second film so this guy could put out his double feature and sell it to the kids, the teens. And that's all. And there's very little creativity in it. Okay. Well, by special request, next week's movie, in case you don't know, and all the conversation's been going on, will be The Black Hole from 1979. So we get a Disney spectacular, high-budget GP film, by the way, or PG film, I think. It may have been the very first Disney PG film to come out If I remember, I think it is. So you get that, and you get the robots. So that will be next week, and we'll be doing that, and we'll be talking about Field Day coming up as well here next month. So I've got some interesting details for that. So we'll have next week. Will be. Geez, I'm getting tired. The movie will be The Black Hole from 1979. Okay, time to go to bed. See you all next time. Take care. This is KE5ICX. Cliff.
I can't believe we made it past midnight. This net itself has been a testament to the movie, which was shorter than this net. I think this has been a phenomenon of some sort. Maybe kind of like a black hole. Anyway, y'all have a good rest of your weekend in V5F.
Virginia, I always think that the Afterglow net is a therapy session. You learn more about the people participating in the net than you do about the movie. Enough said. Inside B, be clear.